What the Wolf Wants, Chapter 6. Kayaks on the Tulsa, Oklahoma, dammed up Arkansas River to create Zinc Lake, a disaster in 3 strokes. Drew Chico had a gift for ideas that were, taken individually, not unreasonable, and which became unreasonable only when assembled into a plan. The kayak outing was a good example of this. Orsino had come along because Vic was going. He had not said this. He had said that he had been meaning to kayak the lake section, and this was a convenient opportunity. This was the kind of thing he said when the truth was not something he had decided to deploy yet, and Viv had filed it without comment in the growing folder she was keeping mentally of things she was not ready to address. Viv thought of her conversation with Olivia. Viv felt as though she had known Orion. It was a deeply touching thing that he had been a fellow geologist. At the same time, Viv glowered at Orsino's use of geological terminology. Didn't he have any sense at all? How could Olivia keep from saying something hateful to Orsino? How she could keep from saying something hateful was beyond Viv. Probably less painful to not talk about it at all. Viv's wolf snarled at Orsino's letters, although she rather sympathized with Orsino's incapacity to express his authentic feelings. Drew, consulting his phone, which contained a downloaded map of Zinc Lake he had annotated with a route. So, I'm thinking we paddle south along the east bank, cross at the wide section, come back along the west bank, past the dam outflow. About 45 minutes round trip. Easy paddle, good views, low risk. Toby, looking at the river with the expression of a man reading a different set of information than anybody else. Low risk. Drew, yes. Totally manageable water. It's a lake. Toby, it's the Arkansas River. Drew responded, it's the Arkansas River in lake form. Toby, with perfect serenity, Drew, the Arkansas River does not have a lake form. It has an Arkansas form, and it has a dam in front of it, and it has agreed temporarily to hold still. Those are different things. Drew responded, Toby, I have done 40 hours of kayaking courses. Toby responded, I believe you. Get in the kayak. For the first 12 minutes, it was genuinely fine. Zinc Lake was doing its best impression of a placid recreational waterway, and the best impression of a placid recreational waterway is, in fairness, quite good when the morning is clear and cold and the city skyline is visible above the tree line, and the water in that part of the waterway has that particular brownish green that means the Arkansas River is anything but ominous. The kayaks moved in reasonable formation. Drew led, narrating the route from memory and consulting his phone only twice. Orsino paddled with the unhurried efficiency of someone who has done this before and doesn't need to demonstrate it. Viv paddled behind Toby, watching her technique with the specific attention of a person who knows something is going to happen and is trying to establish a baseline before it does. Toby paddled with his beanie pulled very low. His life edge was orange and enormous, and he wore it with the dignity of a man who has stopped caring what he looks like in situations that interest him more than his appearance. He was watching the dam outflow to the south. He was watching the surface of the water. He was watching with the particular attention of a wolf near a large quantity of moving water on a cold morning. Everything. Drew, calling over his shoulder. See? This is great. This is exactly the vibe I said it would be. Viv quietly to Orsino. How long has Toby been staring at the water like that? Orsino, also quietly. Since we launched. I've been watching him. Should we? Orsino responded. Probably. Drew, turning, paddling backward to face him. Phone now raised to film. Okay, I'm getting some footage. Toby, look up. Toby, not looking up. Drew, put the phone away. It's for the podcast. Drew, put the phone away. Drew did not put the phone away. This was, in retrospect, the moment the paddle left the rails. What happened next happened fast, in the way that things involving cold water and a 60-year-old wolf shifter on an adrenaline trigger tend to happen fast. A great blue heron, large, angular, possessed of the slow, prehistoric, preternatural patience of its kind, lifted from the east bank reeds approximately 20 feet from Toby's kayak and crossed directly over him at a height of about 6 feet, its enormous wings making a sound like a flag in strong wind, and its yellow eye making brief, magnificent contact with Toby's upturned face. The heron was fine. Herons are always fine. Toby's kayak was fine for approximately 1 more second, which was how long it took for the combination of cold water, a sudden large bird, and the specific adrenaline that comes from being a wolf in a boat on the Arkansas River at 11 in the morning to overcome years of carefully maintained composure. The shift was, by shifter standards, quite quick. By kayaking standards, it was instantaneous, and by the kayak's relationship with an occupant who had just become 30% larger, significantly furrier, and fundamentally incompatible with the concept of a seated position, did not survive the transition. Toby went into the river. The wolf that came up from the water was large and brown-gray and very, very cold, and paddling with the determined four-paw stroke of an animal that has its priorities in the correct order, which are shore, shore, shore. And then we can discuss the beanie, which had, against all probability, remained in place. Drew, staring at the phone, still raised. Is Toby, Viv, who's already paddling, OSU Extension. Drew, what? Viv shouted. Oklahoma State University Extension Program. Canine Hydrotherapy. Certification. He's a certified therapy animal doing a river conditioning session. It's a program. Drew, who was processing, said, That's not. Viv said, Drew, that is what is happening right now. Say it back to me. Drew, saying slowly, OSU Extension, Canine Hydrotherapy, River Conditioning. Excellent. Now, put the phone away. I already uploaded 30 seconds. Viv, who was closing her eyes briefly. Oh, of course you did. Orsino reached the west bank first, beached his kayak cleanly, and was already crouching on the bank with a towel. He had brought a towel because he was a professional, and professionals anticipate the needs for towels in ambiguous situations. When Toby scrambled up the limestone and mud bank and shook himself with the full body conviction of a large, wet dog who has been in the Arkansas River and has opinions about it. The life vest went sideways. The beanie, through some application of physics that did not bear examination, stayed on. Orsino wrapped the towel around Wolf Toby's back and said nothing. This was, Viv thought from the water, an act of genuine grace. Orsino was crouching, speaking matter-of-factly to Wolf Toby. You need about 5 minutes. Breathe. Breathe. The beanie's still on. You're fine. You're fine. Toby, as a wolf, producing a sound that is somewhere between a huff and pronounced embarrassment. Orsino continued. The heron was enormous. I don't blame you. Toby, another huff, slightly less embarrassed. On the water, Drew Chacot was in the process of turning his kayak to film the bank scene when he lost his balance. He leaned one way, then another, then went into the water. He came up immediately. He was wearing his life vest correctly, and to his credit, he grabbed the kayak and climbed back on with the practiced scramble of someone who had, in fact, done 40 hours of kayaking courses. But his phone was in the Arkansas River. The Arkansas River, which had already absorbed 2 decades of orphan well infrastructure, a bridge's worth of Route 66 history, and the categorical indifference of the Great Plains, received Drew Chacot's phone without ceremony. It sank in approximately 7 feet of brownish-green water and came to rest somewhere in the silt alongside its images, its annotated kayak route, its podcast notes, its landlord contact for the apartment on Peoria, and a folder, waterproofed by exactly nothing, titled Tesla Fire, Not My Fault, Documentation. Drew, staring at the water. My phone! Viv, I know. Drew, the Tesla documentation was on that phone. Viv, I know, Drew. 47 photos, 3 written statements, a timeline I made in a note-taking app. Was it backed up to the cloud? Long, terrible pause. The Tesla was my cloud service provider. Viv, the Tesla that is impounded in Creek County? Drew, yes, the Tesla that is impounded in Creek County. Yes. They assembled on the west bank of Zinc Lake with the specific energy of a group that has been through something and is now performing damage assessment. The kayaks were beached. The life vests were accounted for. Toby had shifted back in the shade of a large cottonwood behind the privacy of Orsino's jacket held up as a screen by Viv with the efficient speed of a man who has done emergency reverse shifts in worse conditions, and now was sitting on a limestone outcropping in Orsino's dry, spare shirt, which fit him like something that had been designed for a different body type and had accepted its current situation gracefully. He still had the beanie on. He would have the beanie on in his coffin, and everyone who knew him understood this. There had been one further conversation with concerned bystanders, conducted by Viv with the flat confidence of a person who has decided on a story and is living inside it completely. The paddleboarder had been satisfied by the OSU extension explanation. A woman who had filmed the wolf on her phone had been informed that the certification program asked participants to not post footage of the animals during active hydrotherapy sessions, as it was stressful for the dogs. The woman had apologized and deleted the video. Viv had thanked her professionally and had moved on. Orsino quietly to Vic while the others are occupied. The OU extension thing, Viv said. Yes. You made that up in approximately 3 seconds, said Orsino. 2, actually, said Viv. Orsino, with a pause that contained something new in it, not amusement actually, or exactly, but something that has moved past amusement into a different register. Where did you get hydrotherapy certification? Viv responded. It's a real thing. The certification exists. I just added river conditioning as a subcategory, which does not exist, but it sounds like it should. Another pause. You're very good at this, said Orsino, aware of what he means and choosing not to be aware of what he means. I'm a geologist. We spend a lot of time explaining things to people who don't want to hear that the answer is complicated. Orsino paused, then continued. That's not what I meant. There was a silence that had the quality of the inside of the Goff House conversation pit. It contained honesty slightly larger than the space it was sitting in. Toby, from his limestone rock, said without looking up, Are you going to keep on doing the thing where you talk about something and then mean something else, or should I go stand in the river again? Viv and Orsino simultaneously. We're not. Oh, right. He stood, produced a thermos from somewhere in the flannel that he'd apparently been keeping for this moment. Bourbon. Anybody need some? Drew immediately. Me. Toby. Drew, you lost your phone in the Arkansas River. You definitely need some. Roe. Vic. Orsino accepting the thermos cap without arguing. Thank you, Toby. Viv also accepting, also without arguing. Thank you, Toby. And Toby, sitting back down, satisfied, said, I'm going to tell this story at Hideaway for years. Drew said quietly, please don't mention the phone folder. Oh, but Toby said, but Drew, the phone folder is the best part of the story. They returned the kayaks, Toby's with an explanation involving a rogue wake and a snag, which the rental attendant accepted with the resignation of someone who rents kayaks on the Arkansas River and has heard many things, and walked through the gathering place toward the parking lot. Drew was already drafting episode notes in a replacement app he had downloaded on Toby's phone. He had titled the episode Unscheduled Hydration Event featuring the Arkansas River. Toby had allowed this on the condition that he be referred to in all promotional materials as a certified professional. Orsino walked beside Vic and said for the most of the walk almost nothing. This was not its usual silence. The working silence of a man whose mind was running on a separate track from his body. This was a different kind of quiet, an evaluating quiet, the quiet of someone who has seen something new and is deciding where it goes in the architecture of what he already knew. At the parking lot, while Drew and Toby were loading wet gear into Toby's car, with the cheerful inefficiency of two people who have agreed not to be bothered by anything, Orsino stopped at the edge of the path and looked at the river one more time. He looked at Vic. Orsino, simply as though he's reporting a fact. You didn't hesitate. When Toby went in, you just handled it. Viv said it needed handling. Orsino, most people would have panicked. Viv, I've done magnetometer surveys in Pawnee County. My baseline for unexpected is calibrated differently than most. Orsino, quiet again, and then, I've been thinking about what you said about arriving without a letter. And I think you're right. I think I've been sending the letters because they're easier than the other thing. What's the other thing? Showing up. Just as myself, without the geology. Viv looked at him. He was looking at the Arkansas River, which was going south in its own pace without consulting his options. And she thought, there it is. The revision she had heard starting in the Goff house, the small tectonic shift of a person moving along a fault line they had finally mapped. And she thought, good. And then she thought, this is going to be more complicated than I have accounted for. She said, the gathering place, Tuesday evening. She walks that trail most Tuesdays. I happen to know this. He looked at her. The expression on his face was one that she had not seen from him before, not the professional stillness, not the careful attention, something more open than that, something that said, I notice that you know this. I notice how you know this, and I'm going to think about what that means later when I'm alone. He said, thank you. And she said, you're quite welcome. Don't write a letter. He almost smiled. The river kept going.